Hi. All right. Today we are going to be learning about the Middle Colonies. Um, so let's get started. Different colonies. You still have four colonies to learn about, the Middle Colonies. These were New York, New Jersey, Delaware, and Pennsylvania. And you can go back to that map that has all the colonies listed, and you'll see they're kind of clustered right in the center. Both of the Southern colonies and the New England colonies attracted mostly colonists from England and Scotland, but many people from different parts of Europe came to the Middle colonies. Many settlers came from Germany, the Netherlands, also called Holland, and Sweden. Some of these settlers came for religious freedom, some came to trade with Native Americans for furs, and others looked for farmland to grow crops. Not all the people who came to the Middle Colonies spoke the same language. They had different religions and customs. To get along together, the people had to be tolerant of one another's differences. To be tolerant means to respect other people, especially people who have different religions, cultures, and languages. And if you think about the United States today, we are a nation filled with different nationalities, cultures, languages, religions, right? And we are a very tolerant and embracing nation because if you think about it, this is like part of our very early roots, right? So these middle colonies were really kind of pulling from some other areas, and these colonists that were coming over didn't necessarily speak the same language or do things the same way. So the middle colonies are kind of unique in this way in that they were pulling from multiple areas and not so much specifically just from England. Um, the settlers from different countries could do certain things very well. The Germans, for example, were very skilled farmers. The Dutch were very good at building wagons and plows, and the Swedes could build strong log houses. The settlers taught these skills to other settlers. Sometimes the settlers learned each other's way of having fun too. For example, the Dutch taught the other colonists ice skating and bowling. Sharing among different groups is called a mixing of cultures. The mixing of cultures helped the middle colonies grow and prosper. So rather than argue about their differences, they used them to their advantage and learned from one another. Like the New England colonies, the Middle colonies had forests for lumbering and shipbuilding. Unlike the New England colonies, the Middle colonies were a very good place to farm. The soil was rich and the climate was usually mild. Summers were warm and rainy. Many kinds of crops grew there. Well, the early settlers grew many different kinds of fruits and vegetables, and these grew so well that the farmers could feed their families and have enough left over to sell to others. Soon, farmers grew some crops just to sell. The main cash crop in the middle colonies were grains such as wheat, rye, and oats. Because the middle colonies grew large amounts of grains, they were called the bread colonies or the bread basket. How do you think colonial grain farmers sold their cash crops? Here is just one example. After the farmers harvested the wheat, they took it to a miller. The miller, who owned a mill, ground the wheat into flour. Now, the farmers were ready to sell their flour in markets in the big port cities of Philadelphia and New York. But how could they get the flour to a big city? If you look back at that map and you find the Delaware and Hudson rivers, you'll see that these rivers flow through large parts of New York and Pennsylvania. Both the Delaware and Hudson rivers are wide and deep enough for ships to travel almost 100 miles upstream. Farmers in Pennsylvania used the Delaware River as a highway to move crops from their farms to Philadelphia. They used the Hudson River to move crops to markets in New York City. When the farmers got to Philadelphia or New York City, they sold their flour and other crops to merchants. The merchants shipped what they had bought either to other colonies or to England and other European countries. New York and Philadelphia became centers for trade and shipping. They also became centers for the mixing of cultures. People with unusual skills and new ideas came to these port cities. There, they started schools, built libraries, and printed newspapers. Settlers in the Middle Colonies learned from one another. They began a new culture from this mixing of cultures. Later, the new culture would be known as the American culture. So, what's really cool about learning about these colonies is being able to see parts of our American culture starting here and rooting and growing and kind of shaping kind of our American culture, which is based on working hard and taking risks and new opportunities and embracing other cultures and learning from one another, and uh, having a willingness to accept other people's religions and having that freedom, right? Which is a lot of our American culture and what we are even still based on today. So this is kind of a neat one because this is really that whole cultural piece, this particular colony or cluster of colonies in the middle. That was really kind of what they brought to our American culture. All right. I think that's it for the middle colonies. Yep. Until next time, we will learn about New York. All right. Bye.